Day. I am so excited to do another Cook with Kris with you guys. Today we are going to be making one of my favorite summery recipes. We are going to be making lemon basil salmon burgers today. So as usual, I am going to go ahead and I'm going to share with you the ingredients I'm going to be using today. And as always, just to remind you guys at the very beginning, because I often get asked this, the recipe is going to be in my stories after I am done sharing with you guys. So you can always screenshot that and you can keep that and you can make these this summer. This recipe is one that I have been making for years now. I made it as a personal chef. I've been making it for family and friends, but it's not on the blog or any place yet. Hopefully this summer I'll put it up there. But let's talk about the ingredients and let's get started. Let's get cooking. This is a very simple recipe. It's a very doable recipe. I mean, I hope that all of my recipes feel doable for you guys as busy moms. This is definitely one that can be done on the weeknight or on a weeknight. Sorry, I'm pulling my hot plate over here. It's definitely one that can be done on a weeknight. And it's also one that can be made ahead too. And you can freeze these and you can make them all summer long. So what are we gonna make? Well, we need salmon, right? So what are we gonna make? What are we gonna use? We need salmon. So I have about 1.5 pounds of salmon here. And yes, I am actually using the whole raw salmon, not the whole salmon, but a raw fillet of salmon. I've got about 1.5 pounds here. You can use canned salmon as well. So if you wanted to use 2 cans of boneless, skinless salmon, you can also use that as well for this recipe. But I am using about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds. I didn't check exactly of salmon here, and I'll share with you how I kind of take that apart and chop that up. But fair warning, I did not bring my fish knife with me today. So we're gonna do our best with what we've got. So that's a thing. But you know, if I can do it with a dull knife, you guys can do it. Of course, they're lemon basil, so you're gonna need 1 lemon. We're gonna use the zest and the juice. So we're gonna zest it first and then juice it. Obviously, we're gonna use some basil here. We've got some chopped red onion, 1 egg, sea salt, of course, we need to salt things, a little bit of Dijon mustard, and then I'm gonna be using panko breadcrumbs. I really like the texture they lend to this. The egg and the panko breadcrumbs really help to keep the burger together, which can be difficult when you're using fish. But you could also use almond flour or a gluten-free breadcrumb if you want something gluten-free as well. But I just use the plain ones, unseasoned. There's nothing, this is just panko breadcrumbs are just like coarse breadcrumbs. They're Japanese breadcrumbs, they're coarse. And so that's just what I prefer in terms of the texture of this. So those are all of our main ingredients. I'm also, while we are cooking, I lost my garlic. Hold on. We are also going to be making a really quick basil aioli because we've already got the basil. As long as you've got some sort of a mayo, whether it's homemade or something you bought from the store, you can make a really quick aioli type sauce. It's not technically an aioli, but an aioli type sauce with some basil, the rest of the lemon juice, and some garlic. So we're also gonna make that too. And that's something that I use on all sorts of burgers throughout the summer. It's super delicious. So let's go ahead, let's get started. So I have my pan on over here. So there's 3 options for this. You can cook it on a grill pan, on the stove, you can cook them in the oven, or you can cook them outside on the grill as well. So these are they're really great. They're really versatile. So I'm gonna go ahead and start taking apart my salmon. So as always, you guys are welcome to ask me any questions as we go. So this salmon has skin on it. So again, I'm not using a fancy knife. So any chefs out there who are like, what are you doing? I'm using a knife that it's pretty sharp, but it's not as sharp as I would want it to be. So all we're doing is we're taking the skin off of the salmon as best as possible. And I'm just using a somewhat flat hand and I'm going as close as I can to the skin. See that? And we're just gonna try and take the skin off with as little meat as possible, but obviously we don't want the skin on there. I have to use a little bit more force with the salmon than I typically do with my fish knife, but if you guys have a fish knife, use your fish knife. So all I'm doing here is I'm just pulling up the fish. If you've never done this before, I figure I might as well share it with you. I'm just kind of pulling up the fish as I go. So we're just removing that skin, but there's not a whole ton of fish on there because we want to use as much as possible. But if you guys are like, I am not here for that, do what you need to get the skin off, buy skinless, or use canned. Any of that works. And I wasn't paying attention and I lost the big piece of fish. See, how many times have you guys been on with me when I have looked up at the camera like, hey guys, and thankfully, you need some wood to knock on. thankfully, I have not yet cut myself, but I need to remember to not stare at the camera when I'm chopping something. All right, so we're just gonna do the last little bit here because I lost it when I was chatting with you guys, but that's it. All right, so by the way, I am using a plastic cutting board. I love bamboo, but when you're using meat or fish, okay, and so this is what I've got left from the skin. There's a little bit on there, but very little. So just do your best. I'm just gonna keep that aside, and I'm gonna chop up my salmon. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Anyone want to tell me what I had started to say? It will come to me if it was important. I am just chopping up the salmon in little pieces here. Oh, cutting board. Okay. So anytime you are using meat or fish, so this is a rough chop and I'm just putting it in a large bowl that you guys can't see over there. I'm not just throwing it on the counter. I'm putting them in a large bowl over here. And anytime you are using meat or fish or anything like that, if you've got a plastic cutting board, it just cleans better. It's hard to really clean the crevices of a bamboo or a wooden cutting board, so I tend to use plastic. And something I learned in culinary school that I still hold with me to this day, and it is so helpful, is if your cutting board smells stinky after because you cut fish up, rub it with a lemon. So wash it and then rub it with a lemon. You can also rub your hands with a lemon, and it also works. Now, this cutting board isn't very big, but we're not doing anything crazy here. I'm literally just chopping the salmon up, but I wanted to show you guys the general how you take the skin off in case you've never done that before. So that's what I'm doing. Oh my gosh, I remember the first time that I actually taught this recipe, I believe, in a public class. I taught it in private classes, but the first time I taught, I did a summer grill series where I would go to people's homes. This is like almost 10 years ago now. And we would do this really delicious grilled menu. And my favorite from the grilled menu that we did, the salmon burgers were part of it. We would do the quinoa caprese salad, and that's a recipe that I'm going to be throwing up in the blog in June. I just filmed it with my sister yesterday, actually. Probably going to make a reel out of it, so you guys are going to be able to see that too. I made these grilled peaches. Oh my gosh, you guys. We did grilled peaches with vanilla ice cream and a little drizzle of bourbon at the end of cooking the peaches. So good. Well, we're not making that today. We're making salmon burgers. First time I taught this in a public class, though. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to go wash my hands, and I'll finish telling you guys the story. I was teaching fitness classes for a local Fit for Mom. If any of you guys know Fit for Mom, I love Fit for Mom. They're awesome. Our local Fit for Mom isn't around anymore, but I was teaching classes and they asked me to do a cooking class. And so I was like, yeah, sure. And we were like, where are we going to do this class? Because there weren't a lot of places around to do it. And we decided to do it on the beach. So I made these because we live by the beach and there are grills on the beach. And so we did it with like the wind and the sand and all. They were still delicious. Everyone loved them. Or they at least told me that they loved them. They were probably a bit sandy, but you know, it's fun either way. So, okay, we've got our salmon in the bowl here. And really, this is not a lot of salmon for like 1.5 pounds of salmon. This is going to be about 4 salmon. Well, this will make 4 salmon burgers. Not about 4. About 4 evenly sized salmon burgers. And what did I do with my other knife? Another knife would be helpful. I'm just going to add in my lemon juice. You guys, I told you we had to zest it ahead of time. And then I cut my lemon. It's okay. We can still make it work. So I'm going to zest about half of a lemon. I'm going really gentle here because I just cut it. I was getting overzealous. I was getting excited about the lemon part of the lemon basil salmon burger. So I'm going to use about half of a teaspoon, which is typically about half of a large lemon. So, you know, make sure to wash your lemon. And I'm just going to go ahead and zest about half of a teaspoon worth. I'm using my microplane because I can't do a class without my microplane. Though saying that, I don't think I'm using my microplane next week, you guys. Man, the last class before the summer, and I'm not using my microplane. So for those of you who don't know, next week is gonna be the last one of my Thursday Cook with Chris's before our little summer break. All right, I'm gonna do, sorry, loud. I'm gonna do a little bit more because it's a pretty small lemon. And I really want that lemony flavor. And the zest of the lemon is where those, you guys know about essential oils, right? So the zest of the lemon is where the essential oils are, which is what gives it that really beautiful scent and also a ton of flavor. And just so you guys know, when you zest a lemon, you want to make sure you are just getting to the pale yellow part. You're not zesting so hard that you're getting to the white pith, because that's bitter. The zest has, the zest is slightly bitter, but the zest is where all the flavor is. So you don't want to go so crazy that you are like cutting the entire peel off and then adding something bitter to your recipe. So if you're new to using a microplane or you're using some other grater, just be careful about that. All right, so we're adding about half of a teaspoon. So that's about half to 1 full lemon's worth of lemon zest, depending on how big your lemon is. And about 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and I'm just using my mini colander. I'm using about half of a lemon because, again, this is a small lemon. Roll your lemon ahead of time. I was doing that before as I was setting up. You guys didn't see, but just rolling your lemons or your limes on the counter is going to help to release some of those juices and make it easier to squeeze. Of course, you can use a lemon juicer as well, a citrus juicer if you want. We're gonna add 1 egg, 2 tablespoons-ish, about 2 tablespoons of finely chopped red onion. I just decided to do that ahead of time because I knew I was going to be chopping the salmon for you guys, but just small dice, as small as you can. About 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. Whoops, my Dijon mustard almost exploded on me. This adds a ton of flavor for just a tiny bit of Dijon mustard. I love the Dijon mustard in this. About a half teaspoon of sea salt. And I'm gonna mix all of this up together, and then I am going to add the basil and the breadcrumbs. And I can't even tell you exactly why I like doing it this way, but I like having the more of the liquidy ingredients mixed up really well before I add in the breadcrumbs. And the breadcrumbs will start to absorb some of the liquid pretty fast. And then you can judge if we need a little bit more or less in terms of the breadcrumbs. And I do just slightly mash it up a little bit. Now we have chopped up the salmon pretty small already. But you know, we're not putting this in a food processor or anything like that. You are welcome to, if you do want burgers, you could put this in the food processor and then add the breadcrumbs to it. If you wanted something that had has a little bit less texture to it, you can definitely add this to the food processor. But I like them with a little bit of texture. They're really tasty this way. So let's go ahead and add some basil. I intentionally waited to chop the basil because if you guys weren't on with me a couple weeks ago when I used basil and I was sharing with you the chiffonade, this is just a fun little culinary skill I'm going to share with you guys. You can use this for basil, you can use this for spinach or any greens. I need about 2 tablespoons. So I am just taking the leaves, and these are obviously much smaller than the bigger ones, but like, look at that. That's organic basil too. That's local organic basil. I don't know. So I'm just stacking my leaves on top of each other, and we were gonna roll them up. I think I joked last time that you're supposed to like roll them up like a cigar, even though I have never in my life rolled a cigar and I don't even know how you do that. So I'm pretty sure that's what they tell you in school. So I don't know where I got that from. So if you know how to roll a cigar and I'm doing it right, you can tell me. All right, so the chiffonade is I'm literally just rolling it up and then I am just chopping it. I should have secured my cutting board, but we're just chopping the basil, and I'm just, once it's rolled, I'm just slicing it just like you would slice it otherwise, but once you've rolled it, it becomes these beautiful little ribbons. Now I'm gonna ruin them. So if you were gonna use this for, you know, the topping for a salad, for a caprese salad, if you're not using the full basil leaves next week, preview, we're doing my favorite caprese salad with a twist. It's a twist on your classic caprese salad. It just kind of takes it up a notch. It's another great summer recipe before we break for the summer. So that's what we're going to be doing next week. The chiffonade is really beautiful in salads and as a topping. I think the last time I did basil was my Thai curry, which is saved on IGTV if you guys want to watch that. This is about 2 tablespoons. I'm going to add that in there, and we'll go back and we'll do a little bit more basil after when I actually go and make the basil aioli. But I want to get these burgers on, so they take a little bit of time to cook. So I'm just going to mix that basil in. I just want it mixed really well in there, just so it's mixed throughout. I know this isn't the prettiest recipe to prepare, but it is delicious. All right. And if you notice, by the way, if this sits for a couple minutes as you're preparing the other ingredients, if this sits and the salmon starts to get a little bit more pale, no worries, nothing is happening. It's not, well, something's happening, but it's not going bad. The lemon juice will start to cook. The acid in the lemon juice will start to lightly cook the salmon. That's ceviche, right? So I'm gonna add we're gonna start with about 1/2 cup, and then we're gonna add more as we need to. And so that's totally normal that's happening. It's not gonna fully cook it. It just starts to break down the proteins. Okay, so I want you guys to see this. We'll move this out of the way. So you saw how liquidy that was. As soon as I added those breadcrumbs in, it's starting to come together. So what I'm going to do is, I'm gonna use my hands. So any of you who aren't into that, you can look away, but I'm gonna use my hands. I think that's about right here. I feel like, so the texture is right if when you go to form it into balls, it sticks together, okay? It's not gonna be perfect. I'm gonna put this right on the grill pan, but if you're not gonna grill right away, I would put this on parchment paper, otherwise it'll stick. And you are just gonna be able to form it into a patty. I'm back. I got a call. Scam likely. I can't put it on Do Not Disturb, or Instagram doesn't like that. It shuts me off all the time. I figured that out. So unfortunately, sometimes I get random calls because I am so popular. I don't know. Does anyone make phone calls anymore? I other than podcast calls, I tend to get on the phone with my best friend in Florida about once every 3 or 4 months, putting them directly on the grill pan. That's it. If you need more, if it's not forming together, then you could add a little bit more breadcrumbs, but we're putting them on the grill pan. It is not going to be like a perfectly smooth burger because you're using chopped pieces of salmon. It'll be a little bit more smooth if you are using canned salmon. But it's gonna come out delicious, I promise. But yeah, I talk to my best friend in Florida about once every few months for a few hours on the phone, and I don't know. I call my mom sometimes, but I see her. So when I get a phone call, I'm skeptical. I'm like, who's calling me? It's usually scam likely. Okay. Doesn't everyone just text now? Or Voxer? That's what I like to use, which is kind of like a phone call. All right, we're just forming these into patties. You'll see this forms just about 4 patties from this about 1.5 pounds of raw salmon. And we're just flattening them out so that they are about even. So these are going to cook for about 8 to 10 minutes per side. So they do take about 20 minutes, but you want them to be cooked through. So I'm just gonna let them cook at about medium high. You do not want your salmon, you're not looking for like the Maillard reaction with your salmon. You don't want them to be, there's gonna be a little bit of that, but you don't want them to be super de-duper browned. We're not trying to burn our salmon. So cooking them a little bit slower is okay. So last one over here. And just as a reminder, whenever you cook something, whether it's in a grill pan or a saute pan or on the grill, if you do want it to have that little bit of sear and you want it to cook evenly, you don't want to just be steaming everything. These emit a little bit of liquid because it is seafood, but not a ton. You definitely want to make sure you're spacing them out. So try not to overcrowd. This recipe is very easy to double if you want to double them. You can cook them ahead of time, and you can freeze them individually. I'd wrap them individually. You can freeze them and put them in a bag is typically how I do it, and reheat them on the grill very easily. So then you only do it once. So you can double this recipe, and I'm just flattening them. I'm gonna wash my hands and I will show you them on the grill. All right, let me go ahead and I'm gonna finagle this a little bit. So it's one of those recipes that's really easy, but showing you requires a little bit of, there we go. Okay, can you see those? They're just spaced out on the grill. I can smell them. They smell so good. Let's talk about fish really quick though, okay? When I took the salmon out of the little package it was in, it had a slight fishy odor to it. It smelled slightly fishy. And then, once I threw the packaging away and I patted it dry, which I forgot to mention is an important step. I should have mentioned that. So I don't think anyone's cooking along with me today, because we're not at that cooking class yet. Stay tuned for the fall. But you make sure you pat your salmon dry. Really any sort of meat, if you want a good sear, pat it dry first. But as I patted it dry, the salmon no longer had a fishy odor. A lot of people get turned off when they take something, when they take fish out of the package and they're like, it's bad because it smells fishy. Yeah, your fish should not smell fishy, especially salmon. But if it does have a slight fishy odor, it's because it's just been like stewing in its own juices for however long it's been in there, right? So as long as once you throw away the juices and you pat it dry, if it doesn't smell fishy anymore, you're good to go. If it still smells really fishy, then maybe don't use it. All right, we're looking good over here. I'm just going to chop up some more basil. Let's make a basil aioli as these are cooking. So an aioli is a mayonnaise-like sauce with garlic, and typically some sort of a well, there's lemon juice in it because it's kind of like it's very similar to a mayonnaise. I like making a cheater aioli using mayonnaise. I can't tell you, I think the last time I made a true aioli, like the true sauce, was in culinary school, because once I learned that you can just use mayonnaise and make a really easy aioli, that's the way to go. So I've got my bowl. This, you guys, this is gonna be revolutionary. Telling ya. I'm just wiping off my microplane because it just has some lemon zest on it. Wash it if it has anything that you would not be using in your recipe. Here's the key. Aioli is very garlicky. You can make a roasted garlic aioli, and you can roast the garlic first and blend it together, and it's definitely gonna be more mild. I like using raw garlic. Great for your immune system, and we love raw garlic around here, but I'm gonna warn you, it is what my kids would call spicy. It does definitely have a little bit of a zip to it when you use raw garlic, and it also depends on how big a clove of garlic you use. Now, this is a very big clove of garlic. I'm gonna use about half, because as much as we like garlic, I don't wanna kill my parents who we're gonna be eating with tonight. So, not actually kill them, just like, you know, their taste buds. We're looking good over here. So I'm gonna grab some mayonnaise. This is just Sir Kensington's. You can use whatever mayonnaise is your favorite. I've been doing a lot of filming and teaching meal prep classes lately, so I have not been making my own mayo because I haven't had a lot of time to cook outside of that. So, about a half cup. We can add more if we want to. That's just basil in there, so no worries. Because I'm gonna add the basil anyway. I've got about 2 tablespoons of basil. This is actually quite a bit of basil I chopped up there. Just kind of using up the rest of it. I'm going to use my microplane again and get that clove of garlic. Ooh, salmon burgers got me. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna check on them because they're sizzling over there. I'm just gonna mince that garlic in there. Make sure if you are mincing it yourself, you mince it really well. You don't want big pieces of garlic in this aioli. All right, real quick, because I want to flip these. This is a fish spatula. If you don't have one, go to your local kitchen supply store, probably Crate and Barrel, Bed Bath & Beyond, whatever, get one. It's going to change your life when it comes to anything fish. Okay, I don't want these to burn. Oh, they're looking so good. Okay, so I pressed them down ever so slightly when I flipped them. Ever so slightly. Very gentle. Remember, they are fish. We always want to be gentle with our fish, which is why we use the fish spatula. Makes it much easier to be gentle. And if you need to put a finger on there to lightly flip it over, do you guys want to see how I do it? Let's do the shimmy again, and let me just show you. Because I feel like this could be helpful. This one got a little bit darker. This is the side of my hot plates. This side of my hot plate is a little bit hotter. But I just pick it up like that. I just put it underneath. It has a slight curve to it. So I just use one finger, flip it over. They look beautiful. I'm going to turn it down just a little bit. And there we go. They're brown, but they are not. This actually looks darker than they are. There's no black on them. They're all just nicely brown. This one's just a little bit more. You don't want these blackened. You can make blackened salmon burgers, but that's not what we're going for in these. So you just want them nice and golden. Okay. They might get a little bit more blackened if you are using them on the grill. Not a big deal, but just be mindful. I just turned down the heat a little bit. I am not really watching the time, but at this point I've made them enough. I know when they're done. So, and just cooks through. That's what you're looking for. All right, and about 5 more minutes to that. And then I lightly press them down. So what else was I gonna say? We're gonna lightly press them down, not too much. Whenever you're cooking any sort of meat, or whenever, burgers especially, oh my gosh, please don't smash your burger down when you're grilling them. You're gonna lose all the juices, and that's why your burger is not juicy. Well, one of the reasons it might be. I can't tell you that's the only reason, but it's a big one. I'm gonna add a little bit of lemon juice, okay, to this. About a teaspoon. We've already got the lemon, right? Not a ton. So we've got the garlic clove, we've got the basil, we've got our mayo, we've got the lemon juice, and I don't use this mayo all the time. I just grabbed it at the grocery store when I was there picking up an ingredient. So I am going to taste this, because it's important to taste as we go unless we're using raw fish that's not sushi grade. I buy good quality fish, but I want it to be sushi grade if I'm gonna eat it raw. I'm gonna taste this, okay? We taste as we go. Okay, it's good. I want a tiny bit of salt, tiny bit. And I want more basil. Now, it is going to taste more basil-y, more garlicky as it sits. So kind of like don't judge a book by its cover. Give it a second for the flavors to meld. Give it about 10 minutes and then you can always taste it again. But at this point, once you've made it a couple times, it's pretty easy for me to tell, you know what? It needs just a little bit more. A little lemon, a little basil. And I'm gonna taste it one more time and decide if it needs a little bit of garlic, because I feel like it does. Not after I added the lemon. Okay, we've talked about this before, but I wanna remind you guys, lemon is a seasoning agent. So lemon and salt work in tandem. They work together, they work with each other, or any sort of citrus, they work with each other. So when you add lemon juice, when you add something sour and acid, but citrus especially, it will enhance the flavor, much like salt does. And sometimes if you put a bunch of salt in and a bunch of lemon juice in at the same time, then it can taste over salty. So add the lemon juice. I typically add lemon juice or citrus first, and then I taste it and add a little bit of salt. I added a little bit of both this time, but thankfully it worked out in my favor. I've been doing this a long time. So start with that lemon juice first. All right, I'm gonna grab a plate because these are gonna be ready in just a minute. love to serve these up on a brioche bun is my ideal if you've got a brioche bun, or a gluten-free bun if you're gluten-free. I love to serve these up on a brioche bun with a good amount of the basil aioli and some arugula. That's my favorite way. I forgot my arugula at home, so I don't think we have arugula, but that's okay. Spinach works too, microgreens, or like a mixed green. Any of those would be really delicious on top too. It's also nice with a slice of tomato in the heat of the summer. This time of the year, it's not quite tomato season yet, so I'd hold off on the tomato for a few weeks, unless you're somewhere where tomatoes are ripe right now. I don't know where in the world that is, but I'm in New England, and it's been a cold spring. It's not time for tomatoes yet. All right, it is time for most of these babies to come off. I'm gonna turn this one over because it just looks nicer on that side. Oh, so good. Yeah, these are done. When they're cooked through, they're done. You know what? Well, first of all, I will show them to you. Don't those look so good? And how easy were those? 2:33, and I've been chatting with you guys this whole time. They come together really quickly, which is awesome. Again, you can bake these in the oven. I typically bake them at 375 for about 15 minutes. They'll be done. Check them after 12 to 15 minutes, as long as they're cooked through. And if you really want to, you can tell they're cooked through by just slicing into them just a little bit in the center. Again, you don't want to go crazy because you don't want to release all of the juices. But you can just kind of give it a peek. If it's pink throughout, or not, pinkish white throughout, which it is, it's done. As long as it's not raw, you're good. So I like to, like I said, serve it up. So let's just put one together because it's fun to put one together and to just share with you guys. I just have some classic buns over here. Nothing fancy, but we used my fancy buns. Any of you who have an Aldi near you, can we talk about their, they have brioche buns that are everything but the bagel seasoned. They're so good. So I do a little bit in the bottom and a little bit on the top. It's key. So I used them yesterday. My sister is my photographer and videographer, and we made some spinach Parmesan turkey burgers. I'm all about the burgers lately because I'm ready for summer. Ready for summer. And oh my gosh, they're so good. They were so good with that. Okay. I would put some greens on top, but again, you know what? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. It's the cooking class. You don't have to see the final product. So let's grab some greens. These are just mixed greens, but I love the color of mixed greens. Ooh, there's some baby kale in this mix. Fun. My dad's got some baby kale out in the garden. It's almost ready for me to steal. All right. How does that look? So good. You're gonna make this for your next barbecue, right? So tasty. I would take a bite, except it's gonna be my dinner. So can imagine me taking a bite of this. It's gonna be my dinner later. I'm going to enjoy it fully, and I hope you guys will go home and you will, you're probably at home, or maybe you're at work. I hope you guys will make it yourself. Please tag me in it whenever you make one of my recipes, whether it's from a Cook with Kris or from the blog or anything like that. I love when you guys tag me in your recipes, so please tag me when you make the recipes. I mean, you guys are on my account right now, but it's at Healthy Mama Kris, and I'm so excited to see the recipes that you make up this summer. I have a ton of summer recipes coming to the blog in the next few weeks. I've been doing recipe testing and videoing, so I've got a lot coming to you guys in the next couple of weeks, and next week is going to be our last Cook with Kris for the season. So Cook with Kris is seasonal just because our summers get crazy. Thankfully today ended up, working out really well, and I don't have any kiddos with me, but last week I had kiddos. Next week I'm gonna have kiddos. So we're gonna pause for June, and then we'll come back with Cook with Kris and then some cooking classes and fun stuff in the fall. So next week I'm going to be on making caprese salad with a twist. So kind of my signature twist on the caprese salad. So I will be back doing that next week. And I think that's it. Dana said, awesome. Anything different with canned salmon other than cheaper? You know what? It's not really that much cheaper, honestly. The canned salmon is just more convenient. You can keep the cans of salmon in your pantry. I was gonna say your fridge. I mean, I guess you could, but you can keep them in your pantry. So really no difference with the canned salmon. It's like literally the same exact recipe. You might need less breadcrumbs, but it's the same recipe. I've taught this in so many classes before, and I've had a lot of the students come back and say, I tried this with canned salmon and it's just as good. I mean, I like the fresh salmon, but yeah, the canned salmon, it can be cheaper, but like 1.5 pounds of wild caught salmon, if you get it at a good price, it's not that crazy. And wild caught salmon in a can, or whatever kind of salmon you get in a can, it can be cheaper, but it's kind of on par. So it's mostly convenience, to be honest. So yeah, so you can do it either way. Same recipe, maybe just a little bit of breadcrumbs, which I showed you to adjust as you go. But I think that's what I got for you guys today. I have to go prepare for a group coaching call, so I'm gonna sign off for you guys today, but as usual, I'm gonna go ahead and post the recipe to my stories, and if you guys are just hopping on now, I'm gonna post the replay to IGTV. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I will see you next week, same time, same place, 2 o'clock Eastern for caprese salad with a twist, and kind of the finale of Cook with Kris for the summertime. And then we're gonna all spend the summer making all these recipes, right? I hope so. All right, friends, have a beautiful rest of your Thursday, and I will see you guys soon.